look at how dangerous it is, because it sets a precedent for the future. When they talk about a coup, it does kind of resemble one.
It does.
And then there's Fast and Furious. I always looked at this as some kind of crazy Republican.
Hang on, before we get to Fast and Furious, let me just say this. And I have a theory that the reason why they targeted Flynn so hard and why Barack Obama warned Trump to get rid of him, because Barack Obama did. He warned Trump that Flynn's no good. You better get rid of him. My theory is Flynn was the one who was outing their bullshit program in Syria, that the United States and Barack Obama was funding fucking ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and the intelligence community didn't need a loudmouth like that around, and they were going to teach him a lesson. Am I wrong about that?
Flynn, under Flynn's watch at the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA issued in 2012 a really prophetic paper, a white paper, warning that if the CIA continued to arm the so-called moderate rebels in Syria, that they would establish a Salafist principality in northeastern Syria, which means ISIS's caliphate. And they were proven right. Obama sort of ignored that, and it took, I think, 3 years before that paper saw the light of day. I think that Flynn was targeted because he was kind of a weak link. He was kind of a whack job. He was very sloppy. He had gone to RT's 10th anniversary in Moscow and taken a speaker's fee to be there. He basically, I actually went there. I didn't take any fees. I just went because it seemed interesting and I was invited. But everyone there no one there knew who Flynn was. They all called him the Obama general because he was actually a general in the Obama administration. He got really low marks for his comments, but that kind of made it easy to paint him as a Russian asset. Then he becomes, Trump's, soon to be national security director. He's abroad. I think, where was he? In the Cayman Islands. He was in some Caribbean island, which was not U.S. territory. It's half past cocktail hour, and he places a call to Sergei Kislyak, who is the Russian ambassador. And, it's very normal that an incoming national security advisor is going to talk to a diplomat in Russia, which is one of the most powerful countries in the world. But it was very easy to paint that conversation as some kind of secret collusion until the indictment appeared, and we learned that it was actually Jared Kushner, the presidential son-in-law, close friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, who had ordered or urged Flynn to call Kislyak and ask Kislyak to veto a resolution on the Security Council at the UN, which was penalizing Israel for enhanced expanding settlement activity. So this was basically Israel Gate. You had a U.S. incoming official lobbying a foreign official on behalf of Israel through Kushner. That should have been the scandal, but it doesn't fly in Washington because everyone's, pro-Israel. Everyone's under the boot of the Israel lobby. So it just made it look. Flynn was so sloppy that he just became an easy target there. And years later, the whole foundation of the narrative about him is completely collapsed. But you still have Democrats trying to push this narrative that him getting off is a gigantic attack on democracy and not the NSA wiretapping.
Right. And so Barack Obama, again, is gaslighting people, pushing propaganda, leaking things. And he is a nefarious, evil actor in this whole thing.
As he was in the campaign.
Yes.
He was the hidden hand, the Wizard of Oz, in shafting Bernie.
Yes.
And Bernie Sanders won't say a word about Obama.
And so because of all of this, people are Obamagate hashtag starts. So they're saying this is Obamagate. He had a hand in the Russiagate thing, which he did. So they started to. So then some Democratic Party apparatchiks and defenders, like this guy who used to work for Media Matters, he tweets out, "I remember Obamagate. That tan suit will go down in history as the biggest president." So everybody tries to pretend Barack Obama didn't have any scandals, and if you're paid by David Brock, this is the kind of articles you write. This is your brain habits or whatever the fuck Anand said. So that's his reflex is to be a defender of the Democratic Party and Barack Obama. And so he did, right? So that's what that tweet is. Who the fuck would take their opinion? Who would read that guy? Who the fuck would go, I got to find out what he thinks about shit? Because you could get that anywhere. Anyway.
I remember during Benghazi just kind of laughing at it, this crazy Republican scandal. And it kind of was in some way. The way they frame it is always insane and ludicrous. But, in writing The Management of Savagery, I realized that Benghazi was just a facet of a much larger scandal, which was the Obama administration's deliberate destruction of a stable and prosperous African nation called Libya and their destabilization of an entire region of North Africa and of the Middle East as a whole through the Syria proxy war. So there's always a truth behind it. And when you look at it through a partisan lens, you simply dismiss that truth and you're not arguing on principle anymore. It was the same for Fast and Furious. I was just like, oh, this is Daryl Issa's crazy obsession.
And what was it?
Well, this was a gun running scheme where the U.S. government allowed people to buy guns illegally in the U.S. and smuggle them into Mexico so the weapons could be supposedly tracked and law enforcement could know, where the criminal bosses were. But it wound up being these guns, first of all, there's reason to suspect that many of the guns wound up empowering the Sinaloa cartel. There may have been a deal between the U.S. and the Sinaloa cartel to act against a rival cartel the U.S. wanted eliminated. Classic proxy warfare. And yesterday, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, who is the president of Mexico, has called for a reopening of the Fast and Furious investigation. And he has said that the U.S. either violated Mexican sovereignty or his predecessor, Calderon, violated Mexico's constitution. This is a gigantic scandal in Mexico. But when you think about Mexico and you think about the migration crisis on the border and the violence in northern Mexico, where like Ciudad Juarez is the most violent, one of the most violent cities in the world. And then you consider that under Obama's watch, the U.S. was flooding northern Mexico with high-powered weapons, was actually encouraging people to buy weapons from gun dealers in Arizona and Texas, take them to Mexico and give them to criminal cartels. I mean, how did our brains not explode over that? Instead, it was just completely dismissed because it did political damage to Obama.
So what I did, so I took that tweet and I retweeted it because that always sticks in my, just gets under my skin. This kind of whitewashing of history got 14,000 likes. Just a whitewashing of history. It's just a fantasy you wish was true. That's all that is. That's you not being a grown up. That's you being immature, arrested development, and wanting to have a daddy. That's what that is. I wish I had a daddy. It's
or it's like Jesus or God or daddy, or he's the captain of our team. It's so infantile.
Yes, it's very infantile, and that's the kind of writing you get from guys like that. And so what I said, I retweeted it, and I said, instead of helping them, Wall Street puppet kicked 5.1 million families out of their homes while making the banks bigger. Was the porter-in-chief, built cages for immigrants, opened the Arctic to drilling twice, turned Libya into a failed state, armed ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria, tortured Chelsea Manning, terrorized journalists using the Espionage Act, ignored union teachers as they had their collective bargaining rights stripped in Wisconsin, let DAPL Pipeline play itself out, bailed out private equity firms that made it harder for first-time homebuyers. I could have kept going, but I just decided I'd stop it there. And so anybody who ever tweets out positive things that Barack Obama didn't have a scandal is, again, just a rank partisan propagandist and a gaslighter. And they're not to be listened to. You can. David Brock is going to pay him to write somewhere else. So you can go listen to that. By the way, here's a scandal Barack Obama never talked about. President Obama signs indefinite detention bill into law. So now the government can arrest you without charging you forever. Just like kings used to do in the medieval ages. Just like, they do in Saudi Arabia. They can arrest you, never charge you, not right now in the United States, because of Barack Obama signed the NDAA Section 1021, which repeals habeas corpus. Just so you know. And habeas corpus was in the Magna Carta. So Barack Obama
Oh,
repealed that,
yes,
and now the
Magna
United
Carta.
States is operating on a
For
Liberty
those
View
who don't
from
know, it's a
somewhere around the
document
1100s.
they gave,
That's what Barack Obama did.
it
And if
gave
you want to know
rights
how fucking
to
corrupt,
people
Chris Hayes says that they
back in the
cheat and
1200s.
steal right out in the
That's
open.
really awful.
And here's Barack Obama admitting he's going to cheat and steal right out in the open.
Here we are, my 8th and final appearance at this unique event.
Barack
And I am
Obama.
excited. If this material works well, I'm going to use it at Goldman Sachs next year.
Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha.
So what he just said, if the material that he uses tonight, since this is his last year in office and he won't be coming back to the Correspondents' Dinner next year, he said if it works good tonight, he's going to use it next year at his speech at Goldman
No.
Sachs,
Okay, why did you
Meaning
do
he's
that
gonna-
for?
be corrupt. And everyone
And-
giggles. And wait, he got one more. He has one more thing to say. And then he covers his corruption with virtue signaling identity politics. Watch this.
I'm impressed that everyone is so foolish as to think so. I stand on the shoulders of
Earn me some serious Tubmans.
I'm Barack Obama.
That's right.
I'm black.
That's right.
And
He said, I'm going to earn me some serious Tubmans, which is when people wanted to
It's
replace the
not that
$20
funny.
bill with Harriet Tubman. So he's going to use corruption, selling out everyone in
That
the poor
distraction
people in the
sounds good at
country
the start.
to the
I tried
rapacious
it. It
oligarchs
doesn't work.
at Goldman Sachs. And he says it's okay because he's going to get paid in bills that have Harriet Tubman's face on them, which is just a perversion of what is actually supposed to be happening. He's taking a perversion and making it seem like a virtue. That's what Barack Obama does. He takes something that's perverted, which is him selling out black America along with white America and every other color of America who are workers or poor, to who? The rapacious oligarchs at Goldman Sachs, because that's how he governed. He kicked 5.1 million families out of their house in a
Yeah.
recession caused by Wall Street,
play your
making sure the banks
sentence.
got bigger.
Yeah,
Did
right.
nothing didn't give people health care, didn't give people relief from the banks.